What is up everyone, Andrew Baina here, and on today's video, we are going to be talking about one of the most hyped pieces of gear since 2020. This is the Nordli DSP Quad Cortex. So for those of you who know me, you'll know that I've been a big fan of Nordli DSP for a long time. I'm also endorsed by them, and they hooked me up with an artist pricing on this unit. I didn't get it for free, and they're not paying for me to do a video. However, I think that's still important to mention just for the sake of transparency. Not quite sure where that puts this on the sponsored content scale, but there is your disclaimer. So like I said, I've been a big fan of this company for a very long time. I actually sold my Kemper unit about a year ago because I found myself using their plugins more than my Kemper. So this is one of the first modelers that I've bought. Actually, it is the first modeler that I've bought since I sold my Kemper. And I also sold my Line 6 HX Stomp because I wasn't really using those anymore because I liked the plugins so much, and also my real amps. So we're gonna see how this thing holds up. So first and foremost, of course, you guys just heard the full demo mix. So all of the guitar tones and the bass tone that you heard in that mix were done using this device. It was a pretty simple mix. There was only 2 guitars and 1 bass. And now that you've heard how it sounds like in a full mix, what I'm gonna do is show you the tone that I was using on guitar, and then we're gonna go through the tone creation process for both guitar and bass tones so you can see the entire process of making a tone from scratch. We're also going to be taking a look at using the Quad Cortex in a live band setting. So let's say you want to take this with you, plug it into a real guitar cab, and use it in place of bringing an amp. And then after we go through some tone creations, we're going to move on and see if I can figure out the neural capture side of things. What this basically means is, in theory, you can plug in your own amp or pedal into this device, and it will essentially capture or profile it, if you will. So you can have a digital version of your physical piece of hardware. So if you don't want to bring a bunch of amps with you to shows, which nobody does, in theory, you can make digital copies of all of your amps, have them on here, and you're good to go. And then last but not least, I asked you guys over on my Instagram at Baina Carcosa if you guys had any questions for me regarding the Quad Cortex. So I'm going to go through and answer a couple of those questions as well at the very end. Okay, so first up, of course, I'm going to show you guys a high gain rhythm tone. So for this, I was using my Aristides 070R, which is a 7-string guitar tuned to drop G sharp. It has a Seymour Duncan Pegasus pickup in the bridge and a Sentient pickup in the neck. This is going directly into input 1 of the Quad Cortex, and everything used to make this tone is something that is found by default the very first time you turn on the device. It's not using any third-party captures that I downloaded from the cloud or anything like that. I know there is one in there right now, but it's actually turned off, so disregard that. So this is what my rhythm tone sounded like. So as you can hear, it sounds pretty sick. We're gonna go over to a brand new tone. So as you can see, the screen is now blank because there is nothing going on, and create that exact same tone from scratch or close to it. So first and foremost, when you go to the new tone screen, you're gonna see that there's essentially nothing. All there is a signal path, input 1 to output 1/2. The first thing that I'm gonna do is click that and change that to a mono output 1 because I'm only using a mono guitar for the sake of this video and for my peace of mind because it's way easier. And input 1, of course, because that is where my guitar is plugged in right there. So the first thing that I want is a noise gate. So all you have to do is click on the screen and then your options pop up. I'm gonna scroll all the way to the bottom to utility and simple gate. So right there, we got a noise gate. Next up, of course, we need some kind of overdrive pedal. So again, we're just gonna click on the screen. Our options are gonna pop up. Let's go overdrive, guitar, and let's use, what was I using? I was probably using the green 808, which of course is like a tube screamer type thing. Next up, we need an amp. So let's go ahead and add an amp, guitar, and I like the 5150, which is EV1013 red, obviously based off of a 5153. Of course, we need a guitar cabinet. So let's go guitar cabinet and add a, let's do a 412 with V30s. That's a pretty typical metal sound. And I think that's honestly probably pretty much it. I don't remember if I had anything else. So let's hear how it sounds. So as you can hear, it's that easy to get started in your tone. Obviously, this isn't necessarily what I want it to sound like. So to edit the parameters, you simply click one of your options. So let's say we want to edit the settings of the tube screamer. Again, you just select the tube screamer, the options show up, and now we can see we have overdrive, tone, and level. So in this case, I'm actually going to turn the overdrive all the way down. One of the cool things about the Quad Cortex is, in addition to these being stomp boxes, they're actually dials that you can twist left and right, which is super cool. So we're going to use the standard overdrive settings, which is to have the overdrive at 0, tone at full, volume at full. Once you're done, you click done. Next up, we're going to go over to the amp. We're going to increase the gain of the amp a little bit to maybe like 6. That should be good. Let's boost up the mids to like 7.5. Bass, let's reduce that a bit. Boost the treble a little more. Bring up the master volume a little bit. Maybe bring up the presence. And let's hear how that's sounding. So it's clipping a little bit. Let's reduce that master one more time. So I'm actually pretty happy with that as is. The only thing I was going to increase was the noise gate. So let's just, you know, increase that to like, let's say 30-ish. Okay, and that's pretty much it. Obviously this isn't a perfect tone, but this is like a pretty standard metal rhythm tone in, what was that, under 5 minutes. Last but not least, of course, you're gonna wanna save your preset. So to do that, all you do is click this top right corner. There's a little save floppy disk looking thing. Save, you can name the preset whatever you want. So let's call it QC video test. Oops. That's not how you spell that. Sure, QC video E. Not what I meant to say, but regardless. So yeah, just like that, we now have this tone saved to slot F in bank 19. And it's that simple. And of course, to switch tones, it's very easy. In my current setup, I'm set to preset mode. So what that means is each of these stomp box buttons corresponds to a preset. So if you go to A, for example, this was the tone I was using in my recording at the beginning of this video. And this one is the one I just made. Of course, I've got some other ones in here. This was the bass tone I was using, for example. We got a tone I downloaded from Rabia, awesome YouTuber. And then of course, these two currently have nothing, so you can make your own tone there or download one from the cloud and place it there if you'd like. Okay, so we're gonna go through making a tone again, but this time using a bass guitar. So this is my Dingwall NG2-5, again, tuned to drop G sharp. This is the tone that I was using for the beginning mix of the song. So it sounds pretty nasty. As you can see, this bass tone was also incredibly simple. So we're gonna go ahead and make it one more time. So we'll go to an unsaved patch where there is a blank preset. One more time real quick, we're gonna change this to a mono output. Of course, you can put that to whatever output you want if you want a stereo rig. One more time, first thing in my chain is always a noise gate. Next up, we are going to add another overdrive pedal. But this time, if you notice, when you click the overdrive, there's actually two options for guitar or bass. Of course, this time we'll go bass. And I like the Dark Glass Microtubes sound, and that's what this is, Microtubes B3K. Next up, we'll add an amp. So again, if you go amp, bass, then we can choose a bass amp. I'm not as familiar with bass amps, so let's go with a G800K, and then let's go cab, bass, let's go 210 Dark Glass, sure, why not? Let's hear how that sounds. So obviously not quite ideal, so let's go ahead and go into that microtube setting and play around with some settings. Let's turn the growl and the mid boost on. Let's up the drive a little bit. We'll leave the blend as is. I'm also getting a little excess noise, so I want to cut that out in the gate. And on the amp, We don't really want too much gain here because most of the gain is going to be coming from the dark glass, so we'll leave that as is. Let's boost the bass a little bit more. Get rid of some low mids. Maybe boost the treble a bit, just because. Let's see. Sure, let's see how that sounds, shall we? So it's okay, but I think we could definitely use a little bit more drive. Let's boost that all the way. Maybe let's bring that tone knob up a little more as well. Maybe we could even blend it so there's more of the dark glass sound. That sounds much better to me. We can probably maybe even increase the gain on the amp a tiny bit. Maybe not actually, that's a little overkill. Ooh, that sounded pretty nice. Okay, so that's sounding pretty good to me. Obviously it's not the perfect bass tone, but for messing around for a few minutes, it's actually pretty good. One more time, if you want to save it, save. Let's name it Jaunt Bass. Save. Okay, and there we go. Again, now we have that brand new bass tone in 19G. Okay, so now that I've shown you guys how to go about creating tones from scratch, we're gonna go through one more quick thing with this user interface, which is very cool. So as you saw in my previous examples, I had this in something called the preset mode, which you can see right there on the screen. And what that does, like I explained earlier, is it basically lets you cycle through your different presets. So every single one of these knobs is corresponding to a different preset. However, of course, you can change the functionality of the device simply by clicking the preset button or whatever this happens to say. So again, preset, scene, or stomp. So we're gonna take a look at the stomp example. So what this essentially means is instead of switching between presets, you're essentially going to be able to use these knobs to control aspects of your current tone rather than switching the tone entirely. So for example, as you can see here now, my overdrive pedal is set to B, my amp is set to C, and I believe my speaker cabinet is set to G. But just in case this is incorrect, it's actually very easy to fix. So let's say we want to get our noise gate over to A. So you click assign to switch, press the target foot switch to assign, press A, done. And then now A is my noise gate. One more time, if we go to overdrive, we want to assign overdrive to B, but you can actually see there that it's already assigned to B, so we don't need to do that. And we can see that the amp is assigned to C, but let's say we want to change that, assign to switch, oops, assign to switch. Let's say we want it to do D instead, for example. It's that easy. We're gonna switch it back to C though. So I'm pretty sure you get the point, but really quick, if you turn off something, you can see obviously the corresponding light turns off as well. So again, for the overdrive pedal, turning it off and on has an indication on the actual foot switch and on the screen. Very cool stuff. There are honestly so many features in this interface that I really can't go over in this video because it would be like half an hour long, which it honestly already might be. But some other really quick features are of course a tuner. So if you tap and hold this tempo button, it's a tuner. Turn it back off with that. Let's switch back to preset mode. Get rid of those changes. Of course, there are these foot switches here which go through your different banks. So as you can see, all of my presets are in bank 19. But if we move up, we got 18, 17, 16, etc., etc. So there are tons of rooms for presets all across this device, and I would be amazed if someone actually ran out of space on one of these things. One of the other really cool features about the Quad Cortex is that it is Wi-Fi enabled. I can't really show this on the screen because it's going to show my email address and I don't want to do that, but you can basically link your Quad Cortex, or rather your Neural DSP account, to your actual device, and you can download presets from your phone to the device or vice versa via the tone cloud. It's very cool. I've been trying it out a bit. You can actually follow me on the Quad Cortex app. My username will be on the screen at this point in time if you want to download some of my presets. So again, I'm sure there are more features that I'm currently missing in this video and I have yet to discover, but this is kind of a basis for what you will probably be using at least within your first week or so of using the Quad Cortex device. Okay, so next up we're going to talk about how you would use a Quad Cortex in a live band setting. It's actually a lot easier than I thought it was going to be, which is very nice. One of the best things about the Quad Cortex is the amount of inputs and outputs on the back of the unit. This makes things very easy and gives you a ton of versatility. So one of the most commonly requested examples of how you would use this is to use it in a live band setting. So let's say you want to send your guitar tone to your actual guitar cabinet in real life. What you're going to need to do is essentially send your tone out of the Quad Cortex before your cab sim and into a power amp and then into your real cabinet. The reason that you want to do that, of course, is because you don't want to be sending the sound of a emulated guitar cabinet into a real guitar cabinet, because then you basically have double cabs and it's going to sound terrible. Trust me, I've made that mistake before. So to do that, it's actually quite simple. You just press and hold on the screen, and then this option will show up called splitter. By default, what you're going to do is press and hold the S symbol and drag it to where you want. So again, we want it to be after the amp and before the guitar cab, because we want to send all three of these signals to our real life guitar cab / power amp. So once you do that, you click done. And now after you do that, you can see that your signal splits into two different outputs. So it goes into your noise gate, overdrive, amp, and then it splits. On the first output, it continues on to a cabinet and then an EQ in my case, and then it goes out to output 1, which goes into my computer. However, now we can see that the signal splits after the amp and goes somewhere else. Right now this is unassigned, so we're going to go ahead and click that and assign it to output 3. So now all we have to do is plug in a different cable to output 3 on the back of the device, and that is going to go into our power amp. You can of course use any power amp you want to achieve this. In my case, I use this, which is a Seymour Duncan Power Stage 200. So essentially on my pedal board, I would have the Quad Cortex, output 3 going into the input of my power amp, and then my power amp would be going into my guitar cab, which would give me my stage volume and allow me to use the Quad Cortex for a live show. I'm going to demonstrate this really quickly so you guys can hear how it would work in real life. Okay, so super quick recap of what's going on here. We have the guitar going into input 1 right there. As you can see, input 1, and then it goes through this signal path up to here, splits out to output 3. Output 3 is this guy right here. Output 3 is going into this power amp, which is the Seymour Duncan Power Stage. This is output 3 coming from the Quad Cortex to the input, and then this is going out of that and into my Rev 2x12. Sorry about the super ghetto setup, but that's how this is all working. Obviously, normally I would make it look way nicer, but for the purpose of this video, this is how you would set it up for a live purpose, and it sounds like this. And that's how it sounds. One of the other big features about the Quad Cortex is of course the neural capture. As I briefly explained in the intro to this video, essentially what this means is you can capture an actual analog piece of gear into this device, whether you want to capture something like a guitar pedal. Right now you can capture pretty much any overdrive or boost pedal into the device. So again, you can have a digital replica of your favorite pedals right in here, so you don't need to bring them out with you all the time. Or alternatively, you can of course capture an actual amp head. This is the feature that a lot of people are going to want to use because they were going to want to capture their own amps. If you happen to have an amp that you love, you can get a digital version of that in the Quad Cortex. So I haven't tried this yet. I'm going to try it really quick, but I'll show you how to do it. Simply click the top right corner here, and then you're going to go New Neural Capture. And the nice thing about this versus the Kemper or something like that is it has pretty foolproof explanation of how to actually do it. It goes step by step and guide you through how to set this up. So for example, first and foremost, you can see that your instrument goes into return 1, and then next up it tells you to connect headphones or output 1 and 2 so you can actually hear what you're doing. Next, your capture out goes into, let's say, the input of your guitar amp. And lastly, the output of the device that you're capturing goes into the input of the quad Cortex. Once you got all that set up, you go to the final screen, click confirm, and then you click start capture. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to capture my Engel Fireball 60 watt amp head, and we're gonna see how close this actually gets. Okay, and for the last part of this video, I just wanted to answer some of the questions asked to me over on my Instagram page. Once again, that is at @BainaCarcosa if you want to give me a follow. So we got a few interesting questions and I thought I'd answer some really quick. So the first question is, can it do pitch shifting stuff like the Digitech drop / whammy? Yes, it can. It does in fact have a built-in pitch shift pedal. So again, as usual, click somewhere on there and you're gonna go to pitch shifter, and that gives you a pitch shifter right there. I always prefer putting these in the beginning of the chain, so you can actually just drag it over to the beginning of the chain right there. And if you select it, you can see you have a mix, pitch coarse, and pitch fine option. So we want to pitch, let's say, negative 12 semitones to basically give you an octave down. It's that simple. That's how you do it. Okay, the next question is, can you change what effects / preset you're using in a Neural DSP plugin like a normal foot pedal? I don't know if you actually can. I know that this does have a MIDI output, so in theory, I guess you could maybe use it as a MIDI controller. However, I don't really think that's necessary because in the very near future, Neural DSP will be updating the Quad Cortex with the actual plugin suites in the device, which I absolutely cannot wait for. As you guys know, I love the Fortin Nameless suite in particular. It's what I use for my band Carcosa all the time. So as soon as that is available, I will be using the Fortin Nameless suite natively within the Quad Cortex. I definitely personally wouldn't want to use this to control a computer, especially if you can just use it in the device, and that will be a reality very soon. The only other question I really saw in here that I wanted to talk about is one that I kind of covered in the beginning, but it's just how easy it is to actually use. So again, as you saw in my first example where I was building the tones, it's very simple. All you have to do is plug in your instrument to the input one, and your output one goes into your interface. And that's pretty much it, man. Like, it's very, very easy to use. If you don't even want to record this thing, you don't even need the first output. You can just plug headphones in and you're basically done right off the bat. It's very, very easy to use. Okay, so that's going to do it for today's video. I know it was a lot of information and a pretty in-depth video, but I hope you guys enjoy it. I've been waiting for this unit for a very long time and I'm very excited to finally have one. Overall, I'm pretty happy with it so far. As I use it more, I feel like I'll get more familiar with it and either love it more or maybe I'll find things I don't like about it. But within my first 4 or 5 days of owning it, so far I don't really have any complaints. I've liked everything about it. The only major thing that I just absolutely cannot wait for is for Neural DSP to add in those plugin suites to the device. That is the main feature that I want this for and the thing that I can't wait for the most. I know they said that they will be adding that in very soon, and I'm very excited once again to use the Fortin Nameless suite, the Parallax suite, what else? The Plini suite, the Gojira suite, all of that stuff is gonna make this device even cooler. And the nice thing about Neural DSP is they are working super hard. This unit hasn't been out for very long and they've already updated it. I've had it for what, like 4 days, and I've already had 2 firmware updates. So they're working around the clock to make this device awesome and live up to the massive amount of hype that they've created for it. So that's pretty much all I have to say. Once again, thank you so much for watching this video. If you're interested in learning more about the Quad Cortex, the link is going to be in the description or the pinned comment. And of course, I want to give a big thank you to all my Patreon members whose names are on the screen at this point in time. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I look forward to your comments, and I'll see you next time.